Stavros Niarchos was becoming his great rival. Every time Onassis added a giant tanker to his fleet, Niarchos would go one better, with an even bigger ship.
He's a 47,000-ton oil tanker christened Spyros Niarchos, after the 8-month-old son of Mr. Spyros Niarchos, the Greek controller of the greatest ever tanker fleet.
World Grandeur is a 39,000-ton capacity tanker, and with two more like it, which are launched later, it increases the fleet of the Hellene Magnet to 29 ships.
Named the Evgenia Niarchos, the turbine-driven tanker, over 47,000 tons deadweight, is the sister ship of the Spyros Niarchos, still the world's largest single-purpose oil tanker.
Ironically, Stavros Niarchos had married Tina's sister, Eugenie, so the great rivals were brothers-in-law.
Onassis and Niarchos did have a rivalry, and it was a normal one. They were both the two biggest ship owners among the Greeks. They both had about the same amount of ships and the same amount of wealth. There was a certain competition there, of course there was, and there was a rivalry, and maybe even there was some animosity. In fact, there was.
In 1953, Onassis set up home in the south of France, where he leased an elegant chateau. Here, he and Tina enjoyed the good life.
He had been poor and he was now rich. He saw, you know, what small amounts of money, what pleasure it could give to people who didn't have it.
As a young journalist, Alan Bryan spent 2 weeks as a guest in the chateau.
He had a big dinner, and we had, first thing was caviar, which, needless to say, I never had. And I tasted that. Absolutely wonderful. So I ate what was put on my plate, and he was talking away at the top, and stopped and said, "Mr. Bryan," he said, "well, how'd you like your caviar? Have you had it before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think it's the greatest thing in the world." And, "Bring him more caviar." And came with great spoonfuls, each, I should suppose, about, 50 quid's worth, put in the thing. So I ate away at that and drank the vodka. And then he said again, "How's the caviar? Are you still liking the caviar?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "How much more do you think you could eat, Mr. Bryan?" And I said, "All you've got." And he said, "Bring him a bowl," he said, and a huge silver bowl came in like this. And for the rest of the evening, I didn't eat anything else of the food. I just drank the vodka and ate this caviar, bits of it kind of spotting over me, And I think I even flicked a bit occasionally at sort of passing people. Anyway, he was tremendously pleased with that, you see. And pointed out to everybody, here is this man really enjoying his food and his caviar. Well, no, never come across another millionaire. Think of Howard Hughes and all these people locked away and terrified of any human contact. He was down there, he knew what it was like.
By now, Onassis had bought up much of Monte Carlo. Olympic Maritime's headquarters were in an office over the casino. Tax-free Monaco made sense to a man whose ships had been among the first to fly flags of convenience from Panama and Liberia. From his office, Onassis could look down on the harbour, where his newly finished $2.5 million yacht lay at anchor.
That's his yacht, Christina, down in the harbour. It was a Canadian frigate before Mr. Onassis converted it into somewhere to live. It flies a Liberian flag, although Mr. Onassis has never been there.
He loved the yacht. He considered that it was his private house. He loved it so much that you could see him sometimes walking and having his hand on the balustrade and caressing the varnish and everything else. You could see that when he was doing it.
Dapper's Egg is the bottom of a swimming pool when lowered. It's a dance floor when raised. The staircase with marble balustrades goes round and round inside the funnel. Conditions are good on Mr. Onassis' yacht.
The ship had a lot of very unusual things. One was that every cabin was named after a Greek island and had a map of that island on the door in gold, about a quarter of an inch thick in gold.
On board the yacht, the bathrooms are in marbles of many colours. Some have taps that are gilded dolphins. Mr. Onassis has made a fortune of anywhere between 100 and 200 million pounds.
And he had this bar with stools round, which were lovely to look at and wonderfully soft. And he used to sit you on that and say, now think you are the most beautiful woman in the world, and do you know you are now nearest to the most beautiful and powerful penis in the world? And he said, and then they kind of go back and say, Mr. Onassis, and he said, no, I'm not speaking of myself. I am speaking of the stools. They're all made from the penis of the giant white whale. And if I don't know whether they were or not, but they were of wonderful leather that I'd never come across in my life before or since.
The soft white leather that sheathed the bar stools came in fact from the foreskins of sperm whales. Commercial whaling was an indispensable source of hard cash for the Onassis empire.
Onassis was a person who was single-minded in getting what he wanted, and he saw that the restrictions on whaling imposed by the International Whaling Commission would prevent him making as much money as he wanted, so he just went outside the law altogether. Onassis had absolute disregard for any kind of rule. The whales that he took were any kind that came in front of his boats. If they were whales that were supposed to be protected because they were smaller than the legal minimum size, it made no difference. For example, when he was whaling off the coast of Peru, it was worked out that something like 96% of the sperm whales he took were undersized.
This terrible damage to whale stocks did not concern Onassis. He once said, "The rules are, there are no rules." To evade quotas, he registered his whale catchers in Panama, which had not signed the whaling treaty.
I went down and went into the office in Monte Carlo. Then he said, "Now, tell me, what do the British people really think about me, the top people in the oil business and these sort of things?" And I said, "You really want to know, Mr. Onassis?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I'll tell you." He said, "1 minute. Nigel, you are my guest in Monte Carlo. I don't want you to be embarrassed. First of all, I'll tell you what they think about me." So I said, "Well, that'll be a big relief, Mr. Onassis. Yes, you tell me." He said, "They think I'm a Greek shit with too much money, don't they?" And roared with laughter. And I said, "You're absolutely right."
He had a luxury yacht, a fleet of tankers, and enormous wealth. And yet he remained at heart the refugee from Smyrna.
He said, "There's no point in being a rich man unless you can hang on to your money. I am a rich man everywhere. I have £1 million in every different area of the world. And South America, Southeast Asia, North America, and things." The yacht, he said, was always fueled and ready to go. If anything happened, we'd go straight off and out of the Mediterranean. When he decided which place he was going to go to, where he had $1 million in gold hidden away. And I said, "Well, but what are you going to do? You get there. I mean, if this is going to happen, I mean, there may be revolutions and things going." And he said, "Well, I have my own army." He said, "They're all trained fighting men, the crew. The captain is the highest decorated German U-boat commander in the war." And he took me along, and there was one of the corridors running down the centre of the ship. He pressed a button, and the panel went back, and there were all these, the latest sort of submachine guns and rocket launchers and God knows what.
Even on his yacht, Onassis never stopped thinking about the next deal.
Many times at the end of a day or at the end of a party or a nice dinner or whatever, when everybody else was gone to bed, and he was putting on a coat, he was going at the stern of the Christina, taking a whiskey, and sitting alone there, thinking for maybe 2 or 3 hours by himself, just thinking about his business, I presume, and his plans.